What does this story look like? I can tell you what it looks like here. It's a battle about Tesla, but I would imagine over there it's got a very different viewpoint.
Well, in terms of who Apple's car might compete with, Tesla would be a prime target because they're the big electric car company right now. But remember, Mitsubishi's got an electric car, General Motors has one, and they're bringing a new one out, BMW as well. I sort of see this as Apple would be targeting anybody who already has Apple products. Remember, these guys have hardcore fans at Apple. Anyone with an iPhone, anyone with a Mac, anyone with an iPad. Apple people just love their products, and if that Apple person happens to be driving a Rolls-Royce or a Mustang or I don't know, some cheap compact car, they're going to look at Apple's car whenever this thing comes out, assuming they get the project done, of course.
Do the car makers in Detroit look at Apple as a serious competitor, or is this seen with some bemusement?
Probably more bemusement. These guys sort of scoffed at Tesla for many years, saying that they would never get it done. And in fairness to the people in Detroit who sort of think that way, on one hand, Tesla's made it, but a handful of electric car startups over the past 5 to 7 years have all failed. So there's a whole boot hill of companies that tried to get into this and couldn't get it done. On the other hand, Tesla did make it, so you can't really dismiss a company with $178 billion in cash like Apple does. So they're sort of watching this. Yeah, there's bemusement, but they're also kind of wondering, okay, do they get this done? And then if they do, okay, maybe we should really start worrying at that point.
We had this author on the show yesterday, Steve Levine, talking about the battle to create a better battery and the automakers' desire to make a better battery. And it's a fascinating book with surprisingly a lot of drama around it. But I think that one of the takeaways is that companies like GM and Ford and others have in Detroit are real technology companies that have spent a lot of time and money trying to invent better ways to make a battery, for example. Can Apple really compete with the kind of R&D that those guys have already gotten into in the material science that they've dug into for many years?
They probably can because they have the money to do it, and because they've gone to a whole bunch of battery suppliers looking for the best chemistries. They're already using lithium-ion in their consumer electronics devices. So they certainly got that expertise. It's not their core competency to develop the better battery, although they've certainly got R&D there. But they're very familiar with the space, and the automakers also rely heavily on their suppliers for advances there, and they do their own work. So with the automakers having basically a cooperative kind of R&D with the battery makers, Apple already has that as well. It's a different kind of battery, but they could certainly do it. I don't think it would take long to catch up there, especially given the amount of money Apple has and the amount of clout they have with the companies out there doing battery work.
And finally, this time frame, I find it kind of shocking that they think they can have a car in production in 5 years. Is that, when Detroit launches a new car, 5 to 7 years, why does it take Detroit 5 to 7 years to do that?
I'm actually a little surprised to see that figure, to be honest with you. The Detroit companies can get a new car out in 3 to 4. Sometimes it is 5. But 5 to 7 would be for somebody maybe like Apple who is starting from scratch. They don't have a whole family of chassis, a big supplier network, and so forth. The Detroit car companies can actually get cars out in sometimes 2 years if they've already got a lot of the existing hardware with another model, and they're just going to create a new model off of that existing underpinning set. So 5 to 7 is a very, very long time. Now, look, 5 years for a company like Apple, who is simply studying this right at this point. They have done work, but they don't have factories and this sort of thing. That's pretty aggressive, yeah.